This podcast is produced by the Harwood Productions Podcast Network. To learn more about the network and to find more of our shows, visit us online at www.harwoodpodcast.com.
Hi, it's Cindy Harris, and today I'm going to be showing you my maple pecan cupcakes. Now, this recipe makes a dozen cupcakes, so I want to get my muffin pan, and I want to put a cupcake liner in each of the wells. And I don't know if where you live you can find these sometimes at party stores, but they have all kinds of wonderful little colored and decorated cupcake liners. And today I'm using some little fall ones. They have like little leaves and pumpkins on them. Now we're going to get our dry ingredients together, and we're going to measure out some cake flour, which, remember, it's not the same as all-purpose flour. It's a little bit lighter flour, and we need 1 3/4 cup of cake flour. Now I have to tell you, I got an email from Nadia from Cairo, Egypt, and she said to me, "Cindy, your measuring cups look so huge, am I using the wrong kind?" And no, you're not using the wrong kind. I just happened to find a set that had a bigger than 1 cup. So this is actually a 1 3/4 cup measuring cup, but you could certainly use traditional 1 cup and then a 3/4 cup measuring cup to measure your flour out. Next, I'm going to put in a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And then for the leavening, I'm going to put in 2½ teaspoons of baking powder. Then I'm going to get my whisk out and really whisk all those ingredients together. Then it's time to go over to the mixer. And I want to show you a trick that I do sometimes with butter. This is actually a 1/2 cup of butter, but I didn't have time to take it and get it softened like I do sometimes. So what you can do is cut it up into little squares and then go ahead and put it in the mixer. And you'll find that it actually creams up pretty quickly. So this is a quick little tip for if you get to a point where you can't get your butter softened, you can still go ahead with your recipe. Then go ahead and put in a 1/2 cup of sugar. And you'll notice I'm kind of putting in a little bit slowly because I want it to really get nice and fluffy as it mixes in with that butter. Now I'm going to add a 1/2 cup of 100% pure maple syrup. This is a grade A syrup, so it's kind of amber color, has a nice maple flavor to it. But you'll notice it's not the kind like we normally use on our pancakes, many of us. This is a lot thinner because it's the real deal. A lot of times the maple syrups we use on our pancakes are really, really thick, and they taste good, but they would be too sweet for our cake mix. So that's why I'm using 100% maple syrup. And then just go ahead and drizzle that into the mixer. And then we're going to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla to that. Then we're going to add 2 eggs, and we add them one at a time and letting them mix up in between each. And then we're going to get our dry ingredients. I'm going to turn the mixer down to low, and I'm going to put 1/2 of the flour mixture in. And then I also have a little measuring cup with 1/4 cup of milk, and I'm going to put all of that in, and then the rest of the dry ingredients. And at that time too, you also want to add a 1/2 cup of chopped pecans. Then grab your spatula, give everything a final mix down. We want to make sure the nuts and the flour are all mixed in nicely. And then I use a cookie scoop, and I just start taking and putting that batter into the muffin wells. We want to end up taking all of this batter and dividing it evenly into the muffin wells. It ends up where you fill them about 2/3 full. Now we're going to put these into a 350-degree oven that's been preheated, and we're going to bake them for 20 minutes. And when they come out of the oven, they should look nice and lightly golden brown like this. And then I always take a toothpick and just put one in the center of one of the cupcakes. Make sure it comes out clean. That way you know they're cooked all the way through. Now then I want to just leave the tray like this for about 5 minutes. Let those cakes kind of cool down a little bit. And then after the 5 minutes, I get my cooling rack out. And then I want to go ahead and I use a little fork just to kind of help me get a hold of those cupcakes, and I want to lift them each out and put them on the cooling rack to let them cool the rest of the way. Now when you let them cool, they need to go for probably at least 45 minutes or to an hour. The cakes need to totally be cool before we start to frost them, and because the frosting comes together so quickly, I just wait until the cupcakes are completely cool, then I go ahead and make my frosting. So to put your frosting together, what we do is we go to the mixer, we put on our whisk attachment because we're going to want this to be kind of fluffy, and I put in 3 tablespoons of butter that I've softened, and I kind of get that creaming up. And then we're going to start adding some flavor. Now again, we go back to our 100% maple syrup, which again is kind of thin. We're going to put in 1/4 cup of that. And as this is whisking up, you're going to look in the mixing bowl and you're going to find that it looks kind of broken like this. But don't worry, it's going to turn out fine, because the next thing we're going to do is add 1.5 cups of powdered sugar. And I am going to add it just a little bit at a time. Notice I've turned the mixer down to low, and I'm just going to let all that powdered sugar beat into those liquid ingredients. Now, I didn't sift the powdered sugar. You won't need to. You just need to let it fluff. Now, I found that I like to add a tablespoon of just a commercial thicker maple syrup at the end. It kind of boosts the flavor up. Now, if you didn't have something like this, you could probably use about 1/2 teaspoon of maple extract, but it just kind of boosts the maple flavor up a little bit more without it being runny. Now, as you can see, it's starting to get nice and fluffy, but I still have some powdered sugar that's on the side of the bowl. So at this point, I want to stop the mixer, grab my spatula, and I do want to scrape down that bowl. It's important that we get all of that powdered sugar mixed in with the ingredients. And then, to be honest with you, I just let this go for a couple of minutes because it just keeps getting more and more air in, and then it just gets fluffier and fluffier. Now it's time to start frosting. The cupcakes are nice and cool and the frosting is nice and fluffy. So then I just take my little offset spatula and I put a nice generous coating right on top of the cupcake. Like I've mentioned before, I always try to keep a band of the cake so that you can see that there is cake indeed under the frosting, because when you're using a liner, sometimes you don't see the cake, and it's always a nice contrast between it and the frosting. Now, one other trick you can do is you can absolutely leave these cupcakes the way they are, just like they are here, and they're fantastic. If you wanted, you could also take some of your finely chopped pecans and you could sprinkle a little bit on top of the cupcakes if you'd like. So here they are, our maple pecan cupcakes. What a perfect way to bring the fall season in. Now, if you'd like to give these a try, just go to our website, visit the Cupcake show notes, and I'll have the recipe there for you. And if you have any questions, please send me an email. I'll see you next time.